Hey, this is Matt Wimmer from Brody Precision. We're doing something a little bit different this week. We're taking a look at a new controller that is available from us here at Brody Precision. And because of that, you're not going to have to look at my ugly mug. Instead, we're just going to be looking at the controller and going through just sort of the basic physical attributes of the controller and the software side of things. Most of you were probably already largely familiar with because it runs Niagara. So this is the MAC36 controller from iSMA Controller, and it is what they call a hybrid IoT controller. So you can think of it as an edge controller. It's got a whole bunch of I/O built in. It is running Niagara, as I mentioned before. So it has all of those features that most people are already used to using and working with. And it also has a couple of interesting features that you don't typically see on a controller that we're used to working with. So we're going to start in the bottom left-hand side here. We've got two Ethernet ports, sort of typical for an Edge or Niagara controller. And then we've got two USB ports and an HDMI port. Kind of out of the ordinary for the kind of devices that we work with. But what this allows you to do is take a touchscreen, mount it on the outside of a panel, and wire it up directly to the controller instead of having to use a touchscreen that's also a computer. You can now use one that's basically dumb. The video output would come from your HDMI port, and then the touchscreen interface would get wired in on the USB ports. They also support using this HDMI port just with a normal monitor and then throwing a keyboard and a mouse on the USB ports as well, if that's the direction you want to go. But obviously, since it's Niagara, we can still do the normal interfacing through the Ethernet ports. And if you wanted to use a touchscreen display that was running like a Chrome browser or something like that, you could totally do that still. For the I/O, we've got 8 analog outputs. The identification for all of your connections is both on the controller itself as well as on the terminal blocks. So if I lift this up, you can see that all of our terminal blocks are labeled from the factory. So we've got 8 of those analog outputs. We've also got 8 digital outputs. Same way, labeled both on the controller and on the terminal blocks. For power, controller is looking for 24 volts AC or DC. If we go up here to the top, we've got a single RS-485 port. This RS-485 port can obviously be used in the typical fashion that we're used to, where you're going to bring in some third-party devices over BACnet or Modbus. But you can also use it to bring in expansion modules that iSMA also makes. So they have a line of expansion modules called the Mini series and the Mix series. Both are supported through this RS-485 port. They also make an additional model of the MAC36 that has a second RS-485 port so that you could do both, something like BACnet MSTP, as well as bringing in those expansion modules. Next to our RS-485, we've got our digital inputs. We've got 4 of those, and those digital inputs can do dry contact pulses of up to 100 hertz. So another nice little feature to have. And then for universal inputs, we've got 16 of those, and they can be used for voltage, current input, resistive input, and then obviously temperature sensor inputs as well. On the top of the controller, we've got indication for our inputs and our outputs, so you can see whether or not you're commanding something on, or whether or not something is reading a closure or not. We've got our heartbeat LED, an alarm LED, our Ethernet status LEDs, and we've got a micro SD card that we can use to, store data, as well as if the controller was to die, you could easily swap that SD card out and pop it into another controller. Licensing and such is as you would expect for a Niagara device. So you're buying by the number of devices that maybe you're going to be bringing in, or proxy points from those devices, and SMAs for them as well. So hopefully that was helpful and informative to you. It's a really nice little controller, compact little thing with those additional features that make it a little bit more interesting. I should have mentioned earlier, this was being used on our test bench, so that's why you've got this chicken scratch here. That's not going to show up on your device when you pull it out of the box. So we'll have more from iSMA here in the future, but this is the controller I think that most people are going to have some interest in. So wanted to, show it off a little bit. Hopefully that was helpful and informative. We'll see you in the next video. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so, and have a good one. Thanks.